right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're taking a closer look at President's Day.
Yes, President's Day.
You know that February holiday
Hmm?
where you might snag a good deal on a new mattress?
Oh, yeah. Gotta love those President's Day sales.
Or maybe just catch up on some sleep,
Right.
but get ready for some serious aha moment.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Because we've got a whole stack of articles here
From
various news sites and blogs,
interesting.
and they paint a pretty fascinating picture of how this holiday has evolved.
I'm intrigued already.
It's really interesting.
History is wild like that.
It is. Okay, so first things first.
Lay it on me.
Get this,
Like-
President's Day.
Yeah.
It isn't even the official name.
Really?
Nope.
What is it then?
Officially, at least according to the federal government,
Uh-huh.
it's still Washington's birthday.
No way.
I know, right?
That is wild.
It is. So why?
Yeah.
Why are we all calling it President's Day then?
Well, you can thank the Uniform Monday Holiday Act of 1968 for that little quirk.
That rings a bell?
Yeah, it was all about creating those sweet 3-day weekends.
Oh, right.
So they moved some holidays around to make that happen.
And Washington's birthday got caught up in the shuffle.
Exactly. They shifted it to the third Monday in February.
Which is?
Well, it just happens to land right between George Washington's actual birthday on February 22nd
Okay.
and Abraham Lincoln's birthday on February 12th.
See where you're going with this.
Yep,
So people just started lumping them together.
you got it. And boom, President's Day was born.
More like it slowly morphed into President's Day, right?
It was more of a gradual shift in how people talked about it,
Yeah.
than some official declaration from on high.
Makes sense.
And over time, it's come to include all U.S. presidents.
Even though officially on paper?
It's still Washington's birthday.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So are we celebrating one president or two presidents or all the presidents?
But it's like this weird, it's kind of multifaceted.
Multifaceted holiday.
Speaking of multifaceted, some of these articles were pointing out
What's that?
how President's Day has become like a huge shopping event.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like...
It's like a patriotic Black Friday.
Exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good sale as much as the next person.
Of course, who doesn't?
But doesn't that like cheapen the historical significance?
That's the big debate, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, some folks say all the commercialization overshadows the whole point of remembering our history.
Yeah.
Turns it into just another excuse to,
Fun money.
Yeah, exactly. But then others see it as like a modern way to engage with the holiday,
Yeah.
Like everyone's out there buying stuff anyway, might as well tie it to something historical.
I guess so. It's complicated.
It is complicated. Okay, so we've got this kind of like identity crisis going on with President's Day,
Yeah.
rooted in history,
Right.
but also kind of dominated by all these retail sales.
That's a good way to put it.
But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's go back to the beginning.
Sounds good to me.
So it all started with George Washington.
Whoa, absolutely. Even before it was an official federal holiday,
Oh,
Washington's birthday was a really big deal.
I bet.
This is the man who led the Continental Army to victory,
Right.
became the first president of a brand new nation.
Wow, the pressure.
Talk about pressure, right? He basically set the stage for everything that followed.
I can't even imagine being the first president. Like, there's no blueprint, no one to ask for advice.
Exactly. He was making it up as he went along.
Wow.
And that's why his birthday was such a big deal, even way back then.
Oh, interesting.
Our sources mention celebrations and commemorations happening long before Congress officially made it a holiday for federal workers in 1879.
Okay.
And then by 1885, it was extended to all federal workers, so it really became this national thing.
So we went from these kind of informal celebrations to a full-blown federal holiday, all to honor George Washington. But then a few decades later, Abraham Lincoln gets added to the mix.
Yep.
How did that happen? Was there like some big movement to create a dual holiday?
It's actually more of a calendar coincidence than anything else.
Really?
Remember, Lincoln's birthday is February 12th?
Oh, right.
Pretty close to Washington's.
Yeah.
So once Washington's birthday got moved to that third Monday in February,
Uh-huh.
it naturally fell pretty close to Lincoln's birthday, too.
So it was just a matter of proximity?
More or less.
But Lincoln's an important figure, too. I mean, he led the country through the Civil War, issued the Emancipation Proclamation.
Absolutely. His legacy is all about freedom and equality.
Huge impact.
And while there were definitely some discussions about formally renaming the holiday to President's Day.
To like be more inclusive.
Exactly. It never actually happened officially, at least not on a federal level.
So here we are stuck in this fascinating in-between state.
Right.
Officially, it's Washington's birthday.
Yeah.
But everyone calls it President's Day, and it kind of honors all the presidents.
It's a holiday with an identity crisis.
It really is. But hey, that's what makes it so interesting to dig into.
I couldn't agree more.
And maybe this whole identity crisis thing is reflecting something bigger, you know,
Like what?
about how our understanding of history is always evolving.
Oh, yeah.
We reevaluate, we reinterpret, and that shapes how we choose to remember and celebrate these figures.
History is definitely not set in stone.
Okay, I'm really liking this whole history's a living thing idea.
Me too.
It makes the past feel so much more relevant to our lives today.
It does.
You know, it's not just about memorizing dates.
Right.
It's about understanding how those events and those figures shaped who we are now.
It's all connected.
It is.
And that's why it's so important to go beyond the surface level, you know?
Yeah.
To uncover those nuances, the debates, all the different layers of meaning that exist within something as seemingly simple as a holiday.
I'm ready to dig deeper.
Let's do it.
All right, listeners. We've covered a lot of ground here, but we're just getting started. We'll be back after a quick break to delve even deeper into this fascinating holiday.
You know, going through these articles, I've noticed this tension between, like, celebrating individual presidents
Okay.
versus, you know, recognizing the whole institution of the presidency itself.
Oh, that's interesting. So is it more about honoring specific people like Washington and Lincoln?
Right.
Or is it about the concept of presidential leadership as a whole?
It's a good question, right?
Yeah.
And I think President's Day kind of tries to do both.
Okay.
Like, it started out very focused on George Washington, obviously.
Right.
But then adding Lincoln broadened things a bit.
Yeah.
And now with this unofficial President's Day label, it's like
Uh-huh.
we're supposed to be celebrating all of them.
Which brings up a whole other question.
That's it.
How do we even begin to evaluate and remember all these different legacies?
Right.
It's a lot.
It is, because
All
we're
right.
talking about every single president. And let's be real, some were definitely more effective,
For sure.
more impactful than others.
Definitely.
So how do we reconcile that within a single holiday?
Right. Like, do we just focus on the ideals of the office itself?
Yeah.
Or do we acknowledge that the people who held that office were flawed human beings?
They were just like us.
Exactly.
It was tricky.
It is.
And that's what makes history so interesting.
Yeah.
It's messy.
It is messy.
And our presidents reflect that they were all
Sure.
products of their time, you know,
Right.
with all the complexities and contradictions that come with that.
That's a good point.
And I think in its own way, President's Day kind of forces us to confront that.
It's like we're asked to hold these two opposite ideas in our minds at the same time.
Uh-huh.
This reverence for the office,
Yes.
but also this recognition that not all presidents lived up to those ideals.
Exactly. And that tension can lead to some really interesting conversations.
Oh, I bet.
Like one article mentioned how some schools use President's Day to teach kids about the tough stuff, too.
What do you mean?
You know, not just the triumphs of American leadership,
Yeah.
but also the more difficult chapters.
Like what?
Like the treatment of Native Americans,
Right.
or the whole legacy of slavery.
That's so important.
It is.
It's about showing kids the complete picture,
Right.
you know, warts and all.
Absolutely. Celebrate the achievements.
Yeah,
But also acknowledge where we've fallen short.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about erasing history. It's about learning from it.
And that includes the parts that make us uncomfortable.
I completely agree.
It's a good reminder that history is not static.
Okay.
It's constantly being reinterpreted,
Yeah.
you know, examined through new lenses.
That's what makes it so fascinating.
It is. What might have seemed heroic or acceptable back then might be viewed totally differently now.
Oh, for sure.
It's all about perspective.
And that's what makes learning about history so engaging.
Right.
It's not just memorizing dates and names.
Yeah.
It's about having these conversations about how the past shapes who we are today.
Exactly. And that leads us right back to President's Day.
Okay.
We've talked about how it became a federal holiday, how it expanded to include Lincoln and then unofficially all presidents. But what about the Uniform Monday Holiday Act?
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Did moving it to a Monday actually change how people experience the holiday?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, I love a 3-day weekend,
Who doesn't?
but does it make us think less about the actual reason for the holiday?
It's possible.
Like, has it become more about barbecues and sales than, you know, historical reflection?
That's been the debate ever since they passed that act.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Some people argue that it really watered down the meaning of certain holidays.
Interesting.
It turned them into just another excuse for a day off. But others say it made the holidays more accessible.
How so?
You know, more people can participate in community events or travel to historical sites
Yeah.
because they have that extra day.
It's tough to say what the right answer is.
It is.
It probably depends on the individual.
I think so, too.
and how they choose to approach the day.
But it's definitely worth thinking about, right?
Absolutely right. Like, how are we engaging with these holidays?
Right.
Are we just going through the motions, or are we taking the time to actually learn and reflect?
That's the key.
Okay.
It's not about judging others.
Right.
It's about encouraging everyone to be more mindful.
I like that.
What if this President's Day weekend, we all tried to do both?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Relax and recharge.
Uh-huh.
But also use it as a chance to talk about leadership.
Yeah.
About American history. About the values we hold dear as a nation.
I love that challenge. Okay, listeners, here's something to think about.
Go for it.
Think back to those school projects.
Yeah.
The historical reenactments, all those stories we heard about Washington and Lincoln.
Yeah.
What image of presidential leadership comes to mind?
Okay.
And how does that compare to what we see from our leaders today?
It's an interesting exercise because our image of the president, what we expect from that role.
Definitely shifted over time.
It's true. Like what was considered good leadership back in the 18th or 19th century might look totally different to us now.
Absolutely. And it all goes back to that idea of history being a living thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's not just about the past.
Right.
It's about how we understand and apply those lessons to the present and to the future.
And recognizing that our understanding of leadership, of what makes a good president, it changes over time just like we do.
You got it. And President's Day, with all its messiness and its multiple personalities, it kind of invites us to participate in that ongoing conversation.
I like that.
It's a reminder that history isn't just dates and names.
Yeah.
It's about wrestling with complex ideas, challenging our assumptions.
For sure.
And figuring out our own understanding of what it means to be a good citizen.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From Washington's birthday to President's Day.
From focusing on individual leaders to talking about the presidency as a whole. We talked about the whole commercialization thing, the tension between history and making money, and how we decide who to honor and how.
Lots to unpack.
And through it all, we've kept coming back to this idea that history is a living thing.
It is, always evolving.
And we're all part of shaping that narrative.
We are.
Okay, before we wrap up, I've got one more question for you.
Hit me with it.
And for our listeners, too.
Oh, this is good.
If you could add a third president to the official President's Day title, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
And why?
It really makes you think about what qualities matter most when it comes to presidential leadership.
Yeah.
Do we pick someone known for their wartime leadership?
Like FDR.
Yeah, exactly. Or someone who really fought for social justice.
Like LBJ. Yeah.
Or maybe someone who brought the country together during a really divided time.
Like Gerald Ford.
Exactly. There's so many possibilities.
It's like we're curating our own Hall of Fame of presidents.
I love that analogy.
But beyond individual choices, I think this question really gets at what we as a society value in our leaders.
That's a great point.
Like, by asking who deserves to be honored alongside Washington and Lincoln, we're really asking what makes a good leader.
What qualities do we admire? What accomplishments should we celebrate?
It's almost like creating a blueprint for the kind of leadership we want to see going forward.
I think you're onto something there.
Because President's Day gives us a chance to reflect not just on the past, but on the present. And the future, too.
You got it.
By looking at the legacies of those who came before us, we can better understand what we hope to see in our leaders moving forward.
I love that idea.
It's a reminder that history isn't just about looking back.
It's about using the past to inform the present.
Exactly. And inspire the future.
Well said.
So to wrap things up,
I
think it's safe to say this deep dive lived up to its name.
I agree. We've gone deep.
We've uncovered some surprising facts.
Lots of them.
We wrestled with some pretty complex questions.
It was a good workout for the brain.
And hopefully got people thinking about things in new ways.
That's always the goal.
But most importantly, I think we've shown that something as seemingly simple as a holiday can have so much depth.
It can.
And be a starting point for a deeper understanding of ourselves, our nation. And the constantly evolving story of American history.
Well said. And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. Don't let the long weekend and the sales distract you from the deeper meaning of this holiday.
That's good advice.
Take some time to reflect on the legacies of our presidents.
Yeah.
Think about what qualities you think make a great leader. And maybe even pick your own choice for that third president on President's Day.
I love it. All right, everyone.
It's been fun.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Happy President's Day, everybody. We're back. And, before we wrap up this deep dive into President's Day, we got to talk about that question we posed to our listeners.
Oh, yeah, the big one.
If you could add a third Ogo president
to the President's Day title.
To that title, who would it be?
And more importantly, why?
Exactly. And we're already seeing some great answers.
Yeah.
From our listeners.
Awesome.
And there's a real mix of choices, too.
I bet. It's always fascinating to see what stands out to people.
It is. Some are picking presidents who championed causes they care about.
Makes sense.
While others are focusing on those known for their character.
Right.
Or their ability to bring people together.
Especially during those tough times.
Exactly. And it's so cool to see how those individual values and perspectives shape these choices.
It really shows how history isn't just a bunch of facts,
It's not.
It's a story that we all connect with in our own personal way.
It's like we're all creating our own personal presidential Hall of Fame.
I love that.
But beyond the individual presidents,
yeah,
what I find really interesting is what this question says about what we value in our leaders as a society.
That's a great point.
Like by asking who deserves to stand with Washington and Lincoln.
Right.
We're really asking, what does it mean to be a great leader?
What qualities should we strive for? What accomplishments should we hold up as examples?
It's like we're creating a blueprint for the kind of leadership we want to see in the future.
Exactly.
And President's Day gives us this opportunity to reflect, not just on those who came before us, but on what we want to see in those who will lead us moving forward.
I love that. It's about using the past to inspire the future.
And that brings us to the heart of this deep dive.
Okay.
President's Day might be a holiday with a bit of an identity crisis.
It's true. A little bit of history, a little bit of shopping sprees.
Right. But that's what makes it so interesting to explore.
It keeps things exciting.
It does. So we started by figuring out where this holiday even came from.
Right. From Washington's birthday to this broader celebration of presidential leadership.
Exactly. We talked about whether all the sales cheapen the meaning.
The big debate.
And how we decide who to honor and how.
Do we focus on specific individuals or the office itself?
And through it all, we kept coming back to this idea that history is alive.
It is. It's always changing and evolving.
And we're all part of shaping that story.
We are.
So to wrap things up, I think it's safe to say this deep dive lived up to its name.
Definitely. We dug deep.
We unearthed some surprising facts, grappled with some tough questions, and hopefully got everyone thinking.
That's what it's all about.
But the biggest takeaway for me
What's that?
is that even something as simple as a holiday can have so much depth.
It can. You just got to look for it.
And it can be a starting point for understanding ourselves, our nation, and this amazing journey of American history.
Well said.
So as we sign off, I want to leave everyone with this.
Go for it.
Don't let the long weekend and the fails distract you from what this holiday is really about.
That's important.
Take some time to reflect on the legacies of our presidents.
Yeah, think about what qualities you admire in a leader.
And hey, maybe even pick your own third president for President's Day.
I like it.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.
See ya. Happy President's Day, everyone.
Happy President's Day.